Okay.
So are we good to go?
Yep.
All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. As Jerry said, my name is Mark Persico, and I've been with the City of Temple City for 6 months, actually 7 months. I've lived, however, in the San Gabriel Valley for about 28 years. I'm a resident of Pasadena, and both of my daughters went all the way through Pasadena Public School, so I was talking to Jason. He used to teach in PUSD as well, so we have something in connection there. Jerry asked me to make a few comments about projects that the city has going on. Before I do that, I'll give you a little bit of background about the Community Development Department that I oversee. We are responsible for planning, building, code enforcement, public works, and public safety within the city of Temple City. I'll start by talking about the Rosemead Boulevard project because it's right outside our window here, and I think people probably drive Rosemead Boulevard on a weekly basis, if not a daily basis. The project, as you may have seen, there was an article in the Star News this morning talking about the project. Overall, the project is going, I would say, exceptionally well. There have been a few complaints, as you always will get on a large-scale public works project, but we are ahead of schedule by anywhere from about 60 to 90 days, and we are within budget. When the street is done, what we'll have is, in addition to the 2 travel lanes that the street has always had, we'll have fully ADA compliant sidewalks, which means people with disabilities will be able to use the sidewalks. We're also filling in the missing links north of Las Tunas. Probably only 20% of Rosemead Boulevard actually had sidewalks. So we'll now have continuous sidewalks from one end of the town, the south end of town, to the north end of town. We'll also have a bike lane, which I think is very innovative. And this project, even though I'm a major cyclist, this project started before I got here, but I think you can see just around town and just throughout Southern California in general, there's a lot more people that are bike riding as both a form of exercise and a way of as a way of transportation. So Temple City is really trying to take advantage of those people on cyclists and get people riding through town, maybe stopping and shopping in town. The next major public works project that we're going to have going on will be in 2015, either July of 2015 or January of 2016. We'll be doing a major reconstruction of Las Tunas. That was a project that the City Council approved back in December, and we found out last week that we received $6.9 million in grant funding from the Metropolitan Transportation Agency. So that project will be starting in about the next 18 to 24 months. A couple of the other projects that we have going on, the city's going to be embarking upon a new general plan. A general plan really sets the long-term vision for the community. I know I was talking to Steve at the beginning of the meeting. He says he was born and raised in Temple City. And the question really is, what's the direction for the city over the next 25 years? What do residents of the city want to see in terms of new land uses, possibly additional park space, bike lanes, where can we do new bike lanes in town? And the general plan really allows the community to come together and decide what it wants to see for itself. Another project that we are undertaking is a new sign ordinance. Although I've only been here for 6 months, I've heard both from business owners and residents in the community, there's a lot of concern and issues about signs. So we have hired a consultant. We will be starting a community outreach process in November to talk about new sign regulations for the city of Temple City and what do people want to see. What we would like to see, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Good luck in school.
Thank you.
What we would like to do as part of both the sign ordinance and the general plan is really focus in on economic development. That's a phrase that I think people hear often but don't necessarily know exactly what it means. Temple City has, the way the city breaks down, about 80% of the city is dedicated to residential neighborhoods. You've got very strong, vibrant residential neighborhoods. The balance of the city is made up of about 8% commercial space, about 7% industrial space, and the balance are public uses. So we really have to get every dollar that we can out of the limited amount of commercial and industrial space that Temple City has, so that we can continue to generate the revenue to provide the services that people come to rely on. So that's really what we're going to be doing through our general plan and our sign ordinance, is looking at how we can increase economic development activity. I know a lot of you own businesses in town. You know, how can we get more customers in the door? That's really the goal, and I think that's where the city and the business community have the same interest. The last project I'd like to talk about is a renovation that we have currently going on in our city council chambers. For those of you who've been to the council meetings, and Jerry's a regular at our meetings and has been, I guess, for over 20 years, the council chambers were originally built in 1958 and really haven't been renovated since 1958. So the city council, as part of the current budget, has dedicated funds for a significant renovation of the city council chambers. That project started on September 5th and will be done on November 5th. And I would invite everybody to come to the new council chambers when they open in early November. With that, I know that you've probably got a lot of questions that you'd like to ask me, so at this point, I guess I will open it up to questions and answers that anybody might have.
Where does the council meet while this renovation's going on?
The council has been actually rotating their meeting locations. They've been meeting at local churches. I don't.
Church and state.
Well, I understand that that's an issue, the separation of church and state, but the city has been rotating its meeting locations. I don't know exactly where the meeting is this evening, but okay, thank you. I would have figured that out before 7:30 tonight. So tonight we'll be at St. Luke's, and we've been, like I say, rotating the city council meetings. The Planning Commission and the Public Safety Commission have been meeting in the community center adjacent to City Hall, the community room adjacent to City Hall, and then the Parks and Recreation Commission has been meeting at Live Oak Park. Yes, sir.
When will this project up the street here, Rosemead and...
The Rosemead Boulevard project.
When will that be finished?
That will be done in April or May. We don't have an exact date at this point, but
Which year?
this year, or next year.
I think he's
2014.
talking about
the corner.
Corner.
Oh, I'm sorry, the
Las
Gateway
Tunas
project. The Gateway project, they will be obtaining their building permits this week, and then we'll go into construction.
Tenants?
I don't know who the tenants are yet. They haven't identified the tenants. They've got a lot of below ground work to do. There is a subterranean parking garage.
Well, they've been doing that for 2 years.
I understand that the community's anxious to see that thing happen. We're anxious to see it happen as well. All I can say at this point is they will be getting their building permits by the end of this week. They'll start on their subterranean garage, and their expectation is to be about 10 months below grade before they get to what's called the deck, and then they'll start the construction of the retail and office buildings. And I know that that project obviously has a very, very long history, and going back to economic development, we want to see that thing happen as desperately, I think, as everybody else does. Yes, sir.
Why are they, at that one on Las Tunas on the north side, on westbound at that corner, why are they making the street narrower there by bringing the curbs into the street farther?
We're narrowing the street in order to calm traffic. From a traffic standpoint, there's obviously you want to encourage people to drive through your community and hopefully also stop in the community. But at the same time, we're trying to get people to walk more and ride their bikes more. One of the ways that you can do that is by widening sidewalks and slowing the traffic. And the best way to slow traffic is what's called traffic calming, which is slightly narrower traffic lanes. Studies have shown that when you have 12-foot, 13-foot wide travel lanes, people drive, and unfortunately, they don't always pay attention, and often they will exceed the speed limit. If you can narrow those travel lanes to 11 or 12 feet, people tend to pay more attention to their driving habits, and they also tend to drive slower, which then allows those people that are walking on the sidewalk, I'd rather walk on a street where people are doing 35 miles an hour than on a street where people are doing 50 miles an hour. So that's really the goal, to slow traffic and encourage more pedestrian activity.
Is that just done once?
No,
Is it at the beginning of the street and at the end?
we are going to be in the central portion of town, and I know that there is some controversy in the community about this as well. We are going to be in the downtown portion between Cloverly and Golden West. We're going to be narrowing Las Tunas to one lane in each direction.
Don't you think that's gonna kind of backfire though? Because people are gonna avoid going in that area.
Well, we do have a lot of cross-valley commute traffic, people who live in Glendora, live in Irwindale, live in communities east and work in downtown that use Las Tunas as a bypass to either the 210 freeway or the 10 freeway. None of those people are stopping. So what it's doing is, we believe, and the consultants that worked on the plan believe, that's actually inhibiting local commercial development. Because while you have a lot of cars driving by, again, none of those people are stopping. So if you can actually get more local traffic on the streets, people that will actually shop in the stores, get out of their cars and walk, you'll actually, over a period of time, begin to see much more pedestrian traffic. It's been done in the city of Monrovia, for those people who've been in the valley for 30 or 40 years. Monrovia wasn't a community that a lot of people talked about or went to until, say, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Now Myrtle Avenue is a vibrant street. You've got a lot of activity. You've got all the storefronts there are occupied, business is thriving. So community development and city planning is a long-term process. And the goal is, again, to get locals to shop in the stores, to see the vacant buildings occupied. And the city does have a long-term vision, but it's going to take some time to put in place.
There was at one time a plan for along that area that there would be back-in parking.
Yes.
Now, doesn't that, the lot that you're in right now,
Yes.
what do all these signs say?
Yes.
No back-in parking.
I am aware of the contradiction.
Then all of a sudden, you're gonna say up there, all back-in parking.
Correct.
Isn't that gonna be confusing?
We're looking at changing our policy citywide, because right now all of the public lots are the publicly maintained lots, and even though this shopping center is private property, the redevelopment agency in 1972 helped with the land assembly and construction of the shopping center. So the city has been involved with parking management and parking maintenance in this center since 1972. And that's why in this parking lot, even though it's a private lot, back-in parking is prohibited. It's also prohibited, as you mentioned, John, in all of the public lots. We are looking at revising our parking standards citywide for this number of reasons. Because it is, right now, yes, if we open Las Tunas tomorrow and Las Tunas had back-in parking, that would be a contradiction with what's on the street versus what's on the public lots.
Isn't it risky with 2 lanes? Am I right on 2 lanes?
Yes.
So I'm going down the street and I want to park here and there's cars coming this way and I back out this way so that I can get in to me, or both cars, 2 cars
Right.
are,
I hear a lot of honking.
am I missing something or
No, you're not.
extra trust or something?
It's really no different than either parallel parking, where you've got to pull ahead of the vacant space, and if you're in the travel lane, the person
Right,
behind
and
you.
people are hostile to that now, including
Yeah, but you
me.
can go around those people.
Right. We will have on Las Tunas, where Las Tunas is narrow, there'll be one lane in each direction, but there will be a left turn lane in the center, so there will be an opportunity for people to go around when somebody's backing in. So what you're talking about, Sue, is very similar to either people parallel parking or on Grand Avenue in the, on Grand Avenue in the city of Glendale. Glendale has had head-in parking on Grand Avenue for, as far as I know, 70 years. So while this is, I think, a little bit different than what people are used to, it really isn't all that different than either parallel parking a car or pulling in forward, and then you still have to back out into the travel lane.
That's true.
That's what happens on Myrtle Avenue right now. That's what happens on Grand Avenue in Glendale. So you're right. I think people initially will have a little bit of reservation, but if you think about it, it's really no different than what you've been doing for as long as you've been driving. Unless you're my daughters who refuse to parallel park because they hate it.
Are they gonna have big bumpers in the back so people backing up won't hit anything?
Back up into the store.
There will be wheel stops, yes.
Because I know a lot of people can't back up.
Yes.
They can't drive forward, let alone back up.
Yes.
Amen, brother.
There will be initially a learning curve, and we recognize that there will be a learning curve, but we're not the first community that has done this, so it's proven successful.
Car retailing business is gonna.
Is there also a bicycle lane involved in that?
Yes, there is a bicycle lane.
How wide is that lane based upon the space for the back-end parking, the bicycle lane?
The bicycle lane, my recollection, is about 3.5 to 4 feet wide.
Okay, so it's not a lot of width.
Right, it's your standard, bicycle lanes come in class 1, 2, and 3. A class 1 bike lane is fully separated from the roadway. For instance, the San Gabriel River out is a class 1 bike lane. Class 2 bike lane is the 3 to 4 foot lane where it's just a white stripe that's painted. And then a class 3 bike lane is just the signage which people are beginning to see around Southern California where it says share the road, and then there are the pavement markers.
Along
So
with
this
that,
is a class, just to finish up,
Oh,
so
I'm
this
sorry.
will be a class 2 bike lane.
Okay. The state of California just passed that, or working on that new rule.
3 feet.
You have to keep
Yep.
3 feet away.
Yes.
Governor signed it.
Yeah, is that gonna interfere with that, or are you okay?
It will be okay, and actually the back-in angle parking is more conducive to cyclists, because what happens is when people are backing out of parking spaces, you've got a blind spot.
I understand that, yeah, that's,
So-
that's
So
from
yeah,
that standpoint.
yeah. So when you're pulling back into traffic, you've got a 180-degree view out your front window.
So we're gonna back up into the bike lane when you go to park.
Yes, but you'll see as you're backing up, you're passing a cyclist. Okay, there's a cyclist 100 feet behind me or 300 feet behind.
Have you ever, I'm sure you have down in Las Tunas during like 5, 6 o'clock?
Yes, I have.
How backed up the traffic is, and there's 2 lanes on each
Yes.
side. How do you think it's gonna be with just 1 lane on each side?
Those people that are using Las Tunas as a freeway, frankly, again, don't bring any benefit to the community. They're not stopping in our town. It's wear and tear on the city streets. We have to maintain them. We get all of the costs, quote unquote, costs for those people driving through our town and none of the benefit. So
Those
again,
people who use Longden and Broadway instead of Las Tunas.
Well,
So how many businesses are they gonna see?
they'll probably, if it's a long commute that many of these drivers are making, they will probably wind up either on the 10 where they belong, or on Huntington Drive, or on the 210, or on Valley Boulevard. So I think those people that are making the
Is that where they belong?
those long distance commutes, well, frankly, again, we
You're
don't.
gonna tell people where they belong?
You're not telling them where they belong, but if it's an inconvenience for them, traffic seeks the path of least resistance, is what traffic engineers will tell you. So if I can't make my 30-mile commute through Arcadia, Temple City, San Gabriel, and Alhambra, well, maybe I should drive on the freeway. So people will decide, Bob, where they want to go. We're not telling them they can't be here, but they'll make their own decisions. That's all I'm saying. Yes, sir.
I want to know on Las Tunas and Rosemead here, you make a left-hand turn, and you have 3 cars that go through and got a mile long backup. Why don't they signalize these singles?
They probably will.
When the street is complete, yes, we'll have dedicated turn lanes. But yes, during construction, it has been an inconvenience. We're well aware of that. Yes, sir. My Trojan friend.
Yes, my Trojan colleague here. At some point in time, did developers or what do you call yourself? Planner.
Yes, I'm a city planner.
You must have had some type of conference where they said the government would like to create a more bike-friendly environment. Which, isn't that kind of like the government trying to say, stop driving your car, ride a bike?
No,
You know?
I think.
Because I really can't envision a lot of bicyclists in this area. Now, up north, San Francisco, you know, maybe, or out in the countryside where they are, but I never see kids riding bikes anymore. So I don't see where the concept of maybe we should create bike lanes and that should be such a top priority
Right.
come from, unless you planners said it's going to happen. What did you base that on?
Well, to your first comment about a government program to push bicycles, to my knowledge, and I've been doing this for 30 years, there is no government program to push bicycles. I think what we are seeing as planners, and probably as those people who aren't in city planning, but if you drive around town, you notice more cyclists on the road. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. Over the last 20 years, many more people are riding. And it is a little bit of a chicken and an egg question. You know,
Right.
Do you provide the facilities and then people will use them? Or do you have riders on the road and then you provide the facilities for the people that are there? We've seen a long-term trend in the number of people who are riding, not just for physical activity, but are riding for recreational purposes. They're going out with their kids. They live close to work, or they don't want to drive. They want to go to the market and they want to pick something up. So that's a trend that's happening. All we're doing is really taking advantage of that trend and saying if people are going to ride their bike, we should provide the facilities for them. And the benefit is it gets people out of their cars, and for those people that are in the cars, again, you know, if you can move more people from cars to bikes or foot travel, people that are the remaining people in the roadway, there'll be less congestion.
Just to piggyback on that a little bit, I think there's 2,700 riders in Temple City that have been identified as bicycle riders.
Really? It's funny, because
So they're here.
I don't see kids riding bikes anymore.
You're right, and that's unfortunate. You don't see you don't see a lot of younger kids on bikes. But you know, we're hoping that if you provide facilities, more parents will take their kids out.
You see them riding to school, breaking the law because under 18 you have to wear a helmet and they don't wear a helmet.
Right. And we are.
Is John Spillman behind it?
And I know that Jason left, but I know Matt's here. We're working on providing what are called safe routes to school for kids that actually walk to school. And then we actually have a grant, a bicycle transportation grant, where we're installing Class 2 and Class 3 bike lanes, 13 miles of Class 2 and Class 3 bike lanes, so that those kids that do ride their bike to school will have a safer route.
Also, to follow up on that, growing up, myself, you either walk to school, you ride to school, or you take a bus to school. Now, parents are picking up their kids. In fact, if you go by a school, I don't care what school it is, at 3 o'clock or whenever you get out, traffic is horrible.
Yes, it is.
How are you planning for that?
Well, you know, going back to what Bob said, we're not going to tell people
problem?
what they can and can't do.
Parents
Parents want to drive their kids to school and they only live 2 blocks. We're not going to tell them they can't.
Right.
So, That's an issue that we really can't deal with in any effective way, particularly when you have schools in residential neighborhoods, which is what you want. You want the elementary school in the middle of the residential neighborhood. The downside of that is now that more parents are driving their kids to school, you have traffic.
And now I'm
I
saying,
don't know how you reconcile
I
it.
see the schools creating the drop-off zones. Is that their purview, or does that belong to the school board, or does that belong to you?
Well, the school facilities are actually exempt from city zoning requirements.
I knew it. See, you shook your head.
There is a perk.
You shook, yeah.
Yes, Jerry.
The library on Saturday just celebrated its 50th anniversary. And I sat in on the library assessment needs meeting that they had maybe 10 days ago. And it's 12,000 square feet. They need at least somewhere between 20 and 35,000 square feet.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about, I'm not sure that I have it right, 3P?
Right. I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up. The city, one of the other many projects that we're working on is called the P3 project, which is a public-private partnership. The three entities would be the city, the school district, and the libraries, the county library system. Because we do have, as Jerry pointed out, a 50-year-old library that needs to be at least doubled in size and maybe even tripled in size. We've got a city hall building which is more than 50 years old, and then the school administration is in a building that was originally built as an AT&T or Pac Bell switching facility.
Plus, they're historical buildings.
So I think they are potentially historic, but
It's a medical building.
but we can deal with that
It's a
issue.
medical building.
The
When they-
question is, that Jerry brings up, is there an opportunity for the three government entities to work together cooperatively and build a new facility that meets all three government entities' needs, and more importantly, the community needs? The library needs to be increased in size. City Hall is functional. I don't know how the school district feels about their building, but again, it was never meant to be an office building.
It was a medical building originally.
Right, it was medical at one point, but I believe it was originally a switching facility for either Pac Bell or AT&T. It was always Kaiser?
No, it was originally a single-story medical building, and they tore it down and put up a three-story building.
Right. Well, regardless of the history.
City Hall?
School
District office.
School district.
Yeah, I don't
I used to
know.
go to the doctor there.
Yeah, I don't know all the history of that building, but this is a project that we are working on to see if there's an opportunity for the three agencies to work together to get some economies of scale, because we could share meeting space, we could share conference rooms, we could share restrooms, we could share lobby areas, and the three entities could come together, have new facilities at a significantly reduced cost. So that's another project, the P3 public-private partnership, which you may hear about.
One more short question, 30 seconds worth. Anybody?
Excellent, excellent.
Well, thank you for having me.
No, you got the USC. Mark, we thank you for coming today. This is a camellia plant,
Oh,
and it
fantastic.
grows just great in Pasadena as well as Temple
We
City.
have camellias in our house.
Yes, so thank you for coming, and especially on short notice today.
Thank you so
being our
much.
speaker.
Thanks for inviting me.